This is the most important element of cinematography that separates the amateurs from the pros. And if you want to take your cinematography skills to the next level, lighting is the key factor in achieving the look we strive for. We want that movie feel in our work, or cinematic as we like to say a lot, and if you're a solo filmmaker or work with small crews, lighting is not something you want to gloss over. It is only one detail in filmmaking, but it will be the one aspect you want to invest in, because then as a cinematographer, you have endless ways of enhancing what you create and how you share the story you want to tell. This is not just about getting the proper exposure for your shot, but also finding creative ways to light your scenes that further heighten the experience for the audience. In today's video, I want to focus on how to achieve beautiful soft lighting, and I will only use one light source to do that. This will be helpful to those of you who might not have a lot of lighting equipment or want to get the most out of a single light source you choose to invest in. Always remember, bad lighting will have a poor result on any camera you use, but good lighting can make footage on even cheaper cameras look good. Usually when you light your scenes, you want to mix the quality of light you use, not just harsh and not just soft, and in a future video, it would be great to explore mixing harsh and soft light to show you how it adds more dimension to your work. I know many of you strive to get that soft cinematic lighting as it has become more popular and more of a trend lately, and I'll show you many different ways I achieve that. These are the most important factors to know for soft lighting. The larger the light, the softer it is, the closer the light, the softer it is, and you always want the light to be diffused. You can have a small diffusion on your key light, bring it close to your subject and still get that soft quality, and you can have your light source further away with a higher output and bigger diffusion, and it will also be soft. So with this in mind, let's go over the gear and equipment I'll be using throughout the different setups, so you understand exactly what was used to achieve the look in my shots. Each setup won't require everything that I mentioned, so see what look you want to get and what you need to achieve it. Let's start with the one main light I'll be using with every setup, the June Molus B200. Full disclosure, June did send me the B200 and I thought this would be the perfect light for this tutorial, as it has a lot to offer if you can only have one light source. They're not sponsoring this video and they're not paying me at all. They just wanted to see what I could do using this light and my honest impressions on the B200, so you can decide if you want to look into it. But so far, this has been a really good light to have. I recently used this in my process of practicing cinematography video to light the intro. And the first thing you notice about this light is that it is tiny. But don't let the size fool you, as it can still handle even the biggest of softboxes I use for lighting. The B200 is also bicolor, ranging from 2700 Kelvin to 6500 Kelvin, which has been super useful when I needed that flexibility in my scenes. And it has some special effects I see myself using in certain scenarios. It is straightforward to set up, as it only needs one plug to power on and get to work. I'm not much for diving into all the specs, as it's more about whether it works well for what you need. But if you do need lights that have more output than this, June also offers the B300 and the B500 lights, but I haven't found myself needing to go beyond what this is capable of. I just wish this light came with a dedicated case to protect it better and make transporting easier. Also, to me, it doesn't make sense why connecting the light to the ZY Vega app, you can't turn on the special effects from there, only on the light itself, which makes it difficult to adjust sometimes. Hopefully they come out with an update so it works through the app too. But to go with the B200, I have various ways of diffusing the light to get the soft look we want, and remember, you don't need everything I show you, just the ones you find most useful for your work. The first diffusion is the Aperture Light Dome 2, a big parabolic softbox I constantly find myself using for a nice soft source. The second is the Aperture Light Dome Mini 2, a smaller version of the previous softbox. Aperture now has the third iteration of those softboxes, and those will probably be better since setting it up is even easier than the ones I have. Third, we have the June Lantern Softbox 65D. This will be used in certain scenarios, as this has a different effect on your shots, which I'll show later. And fourth, we are using a normal bleached or white diffusion sheet. You can get this anywhere and even use a shower curtain instead. It doesn't have to be the one that I have, so if you find a cheaper one, go for it. And some of you might want an unbleached muslin instead. Those sheets are warmer and give off a more cozy, natural feel to the shot. With the B200, you can pick which one you want, since you could just change the temperature of the light instead. Even though we are only using one light, you should definitely use practical lights like lamps or any lighting fixtures you may have to add more character to your shots. The B200 is my main key light for lighting the subject, but for some setups I'll share what it looks like with practicals involved. They don't have to be professional lights, just any other lights that help motivate where your key light should be placed. For stands, I'll be using one C-stand. I only have one, but I would love to pick up another, as these are very versatile. But since I don't have another C-stand, I will also be using some light stands. About 3 of them will do, and I recommend this impact one to get. They don't need to be super big or heavy, especially if you're only using them indoors. I will also use a 5-in-1 reflector for some setups. This is also cheap and something you should have in your arsenal. And a clamp holder to attach the reflector to the light stand. Here are a couple more things I'll be using. 4 spring clamps to hold up the diffusion sheet, and some gaff tape. You can always use gaff tape, so make sure you always have a roll with you. And a bonus tool you can pick up is haze in a can or atmosphere aerosol. Not needed necessarily, as I don't use it that often because I just forget to, but it can give you a different feel in your shots. Now let's get into these lighting setups. We are going from the easiest setups to the more complicated ones to put together, and they all achieve different levels of softness. You can pick the setup with the quality of light you like best, know exactly what I use to get the look, and create it yourself. Remember, simply adding more diffusion will make the light softer, but you will need more output from your light. The B200 has been great because it has all the output you would need for these looks. Let's start with the first setup that is the easiest to put up, and that is bouncing the light off a wall or ceiling. For this setup, we have the B200 with the reflector on a light stand or C-stand and point the light up into the ceiling or towards a white wall. This is usually done to increase the ambient light in a space. If the area you're working in isn't bright enough, doing this can help raise the overall exposure in the shot. This is not a typical setup you use for lighting your scene, but if you're going for that look or vibe for the story and just need the overall space a bit brighter, this works. Then you can always use practicals to add more life to the scene if the goal is to increase the exposure with your main light. The next setup is still simple to do, and it's using a parabolic softbox to diffuse the light, but positioning the light in different places to get different results. You have to use a C-stand to hold up the light and attach the light dome too. The first position is the most common we see used, even here on YouTube, like I am right now for my talking A-roll shot. This leaves my skin looking nice and soft with a good roll off into the shadows. In this setup, I also use practicals and additional lights all around in the background, but here, just using the light, you can see the soft quality you get. You can also get more or less shadows on your subject by moving the light. Shifting it more behind your subject gives it a more mysterious look, and you can use this light as an edge light setup instead. But this is also good for getting that Rembrandt lighting look on the face, where you get a triangle under your subject's eye on the shadow side. This creates a dramatic feel, but is still natural as we've seen used in many movies. Later in the video, I'll share another way of using the softbox to get even softer lighting in your work. It just takes a little more setting up. But next, I'll show you how I use a lantern softbox to achieve nice top-down lighting. You can also use the previous softbox for this, but I enjoy the look of this one for certain looks. Again, I'm using a C-stand with the 65D lantern softbox attached to the light. This softbox is good for filling the space with even light and getting a nice roll-off into the shadows, or minimizing the amount of shadows on your subject. This is because the light spills in all directions, but if you want more control of where the light goes, you can attach the skirt that it comes with so you can keep the shadows you want. We can make the light shoot straight down and mess around with the placement to get different results. If you want to, you can add more diffusion on some stands to make the light softer than it is. Another way I like to get nice top lighting is by using the Aperture Mini Light Dome 2. This is another option for you, but I also enjoy using this for other scenarios. I wanted to show you how the lantern differs from this mini softbox in the same scenario, trying to replicate a shot from the Babadook. I added a grid to the mini dome to control the light even more, and I love the look of this shot. I can also make the B200 go into a faulty bulb effect and enhance the moment even more. But the mini dome is great for product shots or close-ups since the softbox is small. Because of its size, you don't want to have it far from your subject if you want the quality to be soft. Now, if you're just starting out in lighting and cinematography and want to understand more about these aspects of filmmaking or get better at other creative skills you're passionate about, let me introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is the biggest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry pros with a wide range of topics from filmmaking, design, illustration, and even improving your lifestyle and productivity. Don't know where to start? Skillshare also offers learning paths where you get a set of classes that build on each other to help you master a specific skill you've wanted to dive into, like video editing, animation, and other art forms. There are so many ways you can learn about lighting and filmmaking, and I found this class by cinematographer Zach Mulligan to be a very useful starting point, or you're like me and want to learn more from someone that's actually been on film sets. He breaks down how lighting affects the story, elements like the direction of the light and shaping it, and even using color and, like we're discussing today, the quality of the light. I plan to make the most out of my summer using Skillshare to dive deeper into lighting, and I'm already seeing the results. If you want to join me and this amazing community, the first 500 people to use my link down in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. This will help you achieve your goals, and thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now getting into the next setup. We are removing the softboxes and only using the B200 and the diffusion sheet for soft light. Here we are using 3 light stands plus the 4 spring clamps. You can also take away a light stand and use a C-stand for the light instead, but this will do. This is a great alternative if you can't afford a softbox and still want that soft quality in your lighting. This is always used on film sets, but to a larger degree since they have the budget for it. They use large silk scrims, but this can get you similar results with a lower budget depending on the size of diffusion sheet you go for. But don't forget, the bigger the source, the softer it will be, and that goes for diffusion too. Moving the light closer or farther from the sheet will also produce different results, so experiment with it. If you thought that setup didn't produce soft enough light, you can add the softbox back on while keeping the sheet on the stands for extra diffusion. Remember, adding more diffusion will make the quality of the light softer on your subject. We'll come back to using the light stands in our last setup, but I want to go back to using the big softbox. Instead of having it at an angle, we're going to raise the light and point it straight down. This time we're attaching the diffusion sheet directly onto the softbox with clamps and some gaff tape for extra security. And this makes the quality super soft. And I recently used this in the intro of my process of practicing cinematography video to get a nice look on my face. But with this setup, your light needs to be able to output a high lux value, and the B200 is capable of that. Don't get me wrong, the light was still around 90% intensity, but the quality of light is so beautiful, I definitely recommend you trying this if you can. The final setup I want to break down is the classic book light. Here we have the B200 on a light stand. The 5-in-1 reflector is also on a stand with the clamp holder for bouncing the light into our diffusion setup like we previously did, or on a C-stand if it's easier to set up. The light faces away from your subject and bounces into the reflector, with the sheet softening the light that finally reaches your subject. This setup is called a book light because it looks like an open book. You can also use anything to bounce the light back into the diffusion. I've had this reflector for so long now, so I thought, why not use this? The quality is super soft and it takes a bit of work to set up, but it gives you this beautiful look on your subject, and I think the results are worth it if you take the time to put it together. I know there are many more ways I can share achieving that soft, beautiful light, but I hope this is a good starting point for you if you need the help getting that quality in your shots. I can always make a part 2 or more videos diving into different lighting setups, but if you enjoyed the video, why not leave a like, drop a comment down below on what your favorite setup is, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.